I was doing a search and I was getting hits that I wasn't supposed to get. And I just thought it was the same thing. I just said, nothing's happening, nothing interesting. And I didn't notice that the number of hits had changed from 67 to 119 because I wasn't looking closely enough and focusing on that aspect to see that not only had that number changed, but all the results had changed. And I just didn't notice. I go, it came back with results just like it did last time. And after a half hour, I realized, oh my God, I can see all this secret stuff. Cool, I broke in. I used URL editing to break into that particular system in that particular way. And I just thought that was fascinating. That I thought I was looking at the screen, but I really wasn't. I was only looking at certain aspects of the screen, and my brain had gone numb. It had gone to sleep in a certain way. It's inattentional blindness, or something like it. But I study this kind of thing because it gives me humility about what I can and cannot see, about what I should expect of myself as a tester. That's what cognitive science gives me. It also gives me ideas about how to use heuristics, which are fallible methods of solving problems, as the basis of a test methodology. My test methodology is entirely heuristic. I do not use algorithms in my testing except as heuristics. In other words, there's no sure way to test anything. You're on your own there. You've got to use heuristics. You've got to know how to use heuristics, just the way you have to know how to be with a dog, a dangerous dog. You got to keep it on a leash. You don't let it run around killing people, cornering people, and you don't want to let your heuristics go crazy too. A lot of process improvement falls apart because process people take a perfectly good heuristic, like a little friendly dog, and they let it off its leash. And now everyone has to follow this rule as if it's a hard and fast rule instead of a heuristic. And now it's attacking people. Now we work for the heuristic. It's a terrible problem in process improvement. Well, anyway, cognitive science is part of learning how to deal with heuristics properly. Mathematics, those are the areas of mathematics I find useful to study. Testing folklore, that's an important part of testing too, but I'm aware that all that stuff in the testing textbooks, most of it is just folklore, unproven stories. It's hearsay about how to test. But it helps me with terminology. I also need to learn rhetoric. I also need to know about technology, of course. I need to know about software process dynamics, software engineering economics. Personally, this is the stuff I learn about. Notice that on my reading list, there's no testing textbooks. These are books that change the way I think about testing, and not one of them is a testing textbook. You memorized that yet? Good. Now, how much do you have to learn about these things? You have to overcome intimidation. That's one thing I want to leave you with here. It's very important. Overcome intimidation. For every one of the subjects I just put up, there was a time when I was intimidated by it, and I've overcome that. I know enough now that someone who knows a lot about it can't back me into a corner. Yeah, sure, you might know more about it than I do, but I know something about it too, enough not to be bamboozled and faked out. Now, I want to get to the point where I overcome incoherence. That means I can tell a coherent story about that subject matter and how it relates to testing. And many of those subjects, I feel I've reached that point, not all of them, maybe half of them. And then I want to overcome competence. Overcoming competence means overcoming the complacency that comes with being able to do a good enough job and then starting to take some risks, experimenting, innovating in those areas. I feel that in testing as a whole, I've overcome my own competence. I pushed past it. And now I'm experimenting, and now I'm not afraid to screw up because I know I'm smart. I know I'm good at this stuff. So I can screw up, and it doesn't reflect badly on me as an expert. But for any one of the constituent subjects, I may not have reached this point. I would say for most of those constituent subjects, I'm here or here. But overall, when you take them together and talk about applying them to testing, I feel like I'm at level 3. So that's how I think about it. This is how I develop my expertise. There's 3 big things that I do. Study and model, experiment and perform, observe and record. They reinforce each other. Study and model that's where I'm just thinking like a philosopher. What's going on here? What's going on here? This is where something's happening and I'm taking data down about it during my projects. I'm usually one writing more notes than anyone else about when was that decision made and why did we do this technique instead of that technique. And then I try experiments. and I try out the skills, and I work with other testers. Okay? This is the test model I alluded to earlier. I have this in my head. Bang! I've got lots of other models, but this is my main one. What about certification? I recommend that you avoid weak certifications. And every certification I know of so far is just a weak certification. Any tester certifications you may hear about at this point in time, every one of them is a scam for consultants to make money off of your fear. That's what it's about. Your fear that you won't be able to get a job as a tester. So you got to get the CSTE or the ISEB or the ISTQB. And not one of them has a shred of foundation to it other than a group of people got together and saw a business opportunity. I've been asked to be a part of some of these and I've turned them down. I've been asked to be a part of some of these and I've said yes. In 95, I was part of the CSQE process. And that's why I know whereof I speak. I repudiate the Certified Software Quality Engineer certification, and I was on the committee that created it. So I know something about how it happened. I think these weak certifications cheapen the craft. I urge you to ignore them.